Good evening. This is Pastor Barbara, aka Preacher with Parish. Today is September 14th, 2016. It's a Wednesday night. Wednesday night means we're in the Old Testament. This is our third trip, beginning about 11 years ago, maybe a little bit more, on live video, and then stick them, and then you stream, and then here, through the Bible. The first time through, we went through the New King James Version. Second time through, we went through Reese's Chronological Bible. Now we're going through what says it's the oldest known Bible translated for the first time into English. I think they make a mistake by calling it the Bible. It's not really complete like you're going to see in just a few minutes. However, I do like the translation. It stands to reason that anything that's been buried for 2,000 years could have been a bit damaged before it went in. We know a lot of it was damaged when it was discovered. People didn't have any clue what it was. They started when they realized there was more than just one full container, 11 caves to be sure, and then another 5 or so that are discovered that might or may not be part of it, but 11 that we consider. I was there 10 years after the discovery. They were discovered in 47. I'm sorry, 20 years. I was there in 67. The discovery in Qumran of the Dead Sea Scrolls was in 47, 1 year before 48, when Israel became a nation. They made shoes out of the first ones that they took out. People were poor and needed almost everything and found a use for absolutely everything. We were in the 5th chapter. Let me check. I'm losing something here in my lap. We were in the 5th chapter and got up to the 20th verse of Genesis. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, the 5th chapter only has 1 verse. It gets worse than this. There are some chapters that just aren't there. And because I'm known for, and I intend to, with the Lord's help, get through the entire Bible, we can't leave big places out. So what we're doing is using the New American Standard Bible to cover the places where we have missing spots. So all of the rest of the 5th chapter, I'm going to be reading from the Standard Bible. Why the Standard? Isn't the King James supposed to be the most trusted? Some of you know I was a court interpreter for a number of years. And translations can't be general. They must be extremely accurate. There are 2 ways to translate. You either translate the thought or you translate the words. Sunday night, I'll be talking about something that I thought I understood and had preached for years, and now I have a little bit of doubt about something regarding the temple where Jesus was taken when he was 8 days old because of one word. I'm not sure that putting emphasis on the translation of each word is the best way to go. If I found myself as uncertain in the courtroom as I find myself regarding what happened in the temple, I would simply call to the judge's attention the fact that I was unsure and given both possibilities. And then the judge makes a decision how he or she wants to run the courtroom. And usually, the judge would want to hear both translations. That's why we're using this particular version. The Dead Sea Scrolls, the three people, Martin Abegg Jr., Peter Flint, and Eugene Ulrich, who did this study and translation, put emphasis on the translation of words as opposed to the thought. And so does the Standard Bible. So that's why I chose it, to fill in the gaps. There are a lot of gaps in Genesis, which is unusual because Genesis was one of the outstanding, most appreciated, most beloved books by the Essenes, who did the copying and who placed them in the jars and protected them where they were covered, where they were protected for almost 2,000 years. But let's take up from where we ended in our last lesson last Wednesday night. We were talking about who begat who. Because I can hear Captain, he's starting to call me downstairs. I fed him a little bit ago, and I didn't close the door because I thought that Boone in his coming, he's the one that's calling me. There's four of the big birds are downstairs. The little ones are always chirping. They're up here. We talked about Enoch. The 21st verse of the 5th chapter says, Enoch was a man of God. He was 300 some years old. Others were living to be 800, 900 plus years. Adam lived to be 930. Methusalah lived to be 969, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But Enoch's son was Methusalah, the oldest man who ever lived. According to some writings of Enoch, not here, he gave his son Methusalah a name that means, in the year of my death it will come to pass. So all the time that Moses was building an ark, there was a man walking around whose name was, in the year of my death, it will happen. What? Well, he didn't build the ark overnight. We'll get to the dimensions of it and some of the details later. But it was quite an undertaking. And all the time, the son of a great prophet is walking around, and his name means, and he's getting up in years. He died at 969 years. So for about 10 to 15 years, he's been the oldest man that's ever lived. Enoch lived 65 years and became the father of Methusalah. Then Enoch walked with God 300 years after he became the father of Methusalah, and he had other sons and daughters. So all the days of Enoch, this great prophet, man of God, were 365 years. Verse 24, Enoch walked with God, and he was not. He ceased to exist on this earth, for God took him. So now we're interested in Methuselah. Methuselah lived 187 years, became the father of Lamech. He lived 782 years after he became the father of Lamech, and he had other sons and daughters. So all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. Lamech, his son, lived 162 years and became the father of a son. His son is Noah. Now he called his name Noah, saying, "This one will give us rest from our work and from the toil of our hands, arising from the ground which the Lord has cursed." So he's given a prophetic name now. What is this about the ground being cursed? Remember when Adam and Eve sinned? Eve's payment, or what happened to her because of her sin, was that she as a woman would never have the glory and the outstanding results that a man would have. And she would have pain in childbirth. What happened? And she believed. She was taken in by the serpent. Adam was not. So his sin was greater, if we want to say there are some sins that are greater than others. But he was told that he would have to work the ground to get food. He wasn't going to be able to just take fruit off the tree or pull a radish or a potato out of the ground. Then Lamech lived 595 years after he became the father of Noah. And he had other sons and daughters. So all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. Noah now is 500 years old. Noah is 600 years old when the flood happens. Okay? Noah was 500 years old, and he became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. We now get to chapter 6. Chapter 6 tells us about the sin that was not only prevalent, but the sins that were being committed by the people who lived in those days were so bad, God wished he had never created them. Now, in the Dead Sea Scrolls Bible, we don't start until verse 13. So I'm going to go to the standard for verses 1 through 12. Now it came about when man began to multiply on the face of the land, daughters were born to them. You'll never find anything, especially in the Old Testament, about a woman unless there's something extremely important about it. And something has happened now involving women that is what this whole chapter, these surrounding chapters are all about. So we get the comment about the women. Daughters were born. Obviously, daughters had been born all along. That the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful. Daughters of men is not hard to understand. But who were the sons of God? We have here, and this is the third time I'm addressing it because this is our third trip through the Bible. Not word for word. Sometimes if there are long lists of names in something, I will just tell you that there's a long list and what the list is about. So I don't read every word. I will explain everything in it if necessary. But I don't read absolutely every word. 99.9% I do. So we have daughters of women who are beautiful in the eyes of the sons of God. Sons of God, sometimes if we don't get the meaning of something in one verse, we go to other places in the Bible where the same verse is used and we get our meaning from there. Usually, the Old Testament, sons of God refer to his first creation, which was angels. Before there was ever the Garden of Eden, before there was ever Adam and Eve, there were angels. Man was created to have fellowship with God. Angels were created to be servants of God and to do things that God had them to do. You know the story of Lucifer, an outstanding cherub who looked upon God receiving praise, and he wanted to receive praise. He began a rebellion. 1/3 of all of the angels followed him, and because they rebelled against God, they were kicked out of heaven and landed on planet Earth. A lot of years passed and a lot of things happened between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2, and it's called the gap period or the gap theory, which we have explained in other lessons. If it interests you, you can Google it, or you can go to YouTube, Preacher with Parrots, and look for the gap theory. These sons of God who married the daughters of men, found them attractive and married them, and produced a lot of really, really, really bad people. So this is what happens. It could be that the sons of God were actually the offspring of a few people who did love and serve God. And the daughters of men would be the female offsprings of those who didn't. That's one possibility. That is the easiest one for people to accept, because you don't have to believe in demons. You don't have to believe that angels were kicked out of heaven. You don't have to understand spirits that don't have bodies. All of these things are in the Bible, but it isn't something that we hear a lot about, so it's easier for us to believe that the good offspring and the bad offspring mated, and somehow they produced these Nephilim. That's a word very easy to translate. It simply means giants. It so happened not only that they were big people. Giants, I'm not sure exactly at what height one has to be a giant. Somewhere about 8+ feet. We have basketball players almost that tall. And then on up to really large beings. So, as I said, the easiest one for our minds in the year 2016 to conceptualize is that the offspring of the people who didn't serve God and were bad found the daughters of those who did serve God to be attractive and had children with them, and these children resulted in giants. What's the other possibility? It is so difficult. There are many intelligent, good, spiritual people who have actually changed their mind. I was reading from someone who believed for many years that it was the second theory. Let me give you the second theory. The second theory is that the giants, the Nephiliim, were the offspring of demons. What is a demon? And where demons come from? A demon is another name for a fallen angel. Angels do not have bodies. That's why you hear sometimes of testimonies where in a terrible accident, an angel will appear, save someone's life, and then disappear. If that is in actuality fact, then you can understand how an angel, a spirit, is not limited like we are. We're limited because of our bodies. There are things these old bodies, especially this one, can't do. So demons, that's another name for fallen angels. Now it begins to look not all that difficult to believe that demons could be the cause of the earth becoming so bad. God says, I have to destroy it all and start again. That's pretty bad. As we go through the Bible, there are a lot of bad things people have done and a lot of remedies God has come up with. A lot of results. Some we like, some we don't. This makes better sense, but I'm a little bit more leaning now toward this second theory that I'm giving you than the first, although for many years I accepted the other one. There's no language, there's no study, there is nothing that is so clear that intelligent, thinking, logical people can say, well, it has to be this. Because I always find the logical way out. If there was a good, solid answer, I think I could find it, especially when we take facts that we're not too sure about and compare them with other things in Scripture that we are sure about. So if demons have in fact impregnated women, earthly women, the result then becomes children who are large and who are very sinful. And the earth is filled with them. And God says, I have to begin again. Now, I don't see a need for us to solve this mystery. There's a lot of things we don't know and won't know this side of heaven, and this is one of them. It doesn't change God's love for us. It doesn't change our need for a Savior. It doesn't change God's plan in sending His Son to Bethlehem to take on a physical body and live as a physical human being like you and I. But born of a virgin, God takes on flesh. All right, let's continue. The Nephiliim, these large, bad giants, were on the earth in those days and also afterward. You say the flood didn't get rid of them. Well, there were giants, not a lot, but some in Scripture after that. What about the one that David knocked out with 5 smooth stones from the river and his slingshot? And what about when 12 spies, one representing each tribe of Israel, went into Canaan, the promised land, to check it out before they moved in? They voted, didn't like it, told God they didn't want to go in, and that's the reason that they spent 40 years in the wilderness. God said, for every day you went in spying it out. You didn't need to spy it out. I told you it's the land I had for you. I told you about it. You would drink water from wells you didn't dig. You will live in houses you didn't build. You will eat food you didn't plant. They found giants there. Not that many, but enough to keep them from wanting to go in. The Nephiliim were on the earth in those days and also afterward, when the sons of God, either the good offspring or the fallen angels who had relations with the daughters of men, came in to the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men who were of old and men of renown. It wasn't one or two occasions that we're not sure about. Renown, well known. Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the world. The New Testament tells us, as it was in the day of Noah, so will it be in the days of the coming of the Lord. Sunday mornings we're teaching prophecy. The situation that the world has to come to is bad. We finished studying through the years of tribulation. We're finishing up the Battle of Armageddon, which allows Jesus to return to the Mount of Olives. And when his feet stand on the Mount of Olives, the war is over. And then we get on after the judgment with his ruling from Jerusalem for 1,000 years. The things that happen on earth, well, they're bad before the rapture. They get worse during the first 3.5 years. Things in the oceans becoming unuseful. Earthquakes, plagues, diseases. But after the first 3.5 years, when the Antichrist takes over, requires people to take the mark of the beast and requires that they worship him for the next 3.5 years. It is hell on earth. As it was in the days of Noah, so will it be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. Things were bad, but God provides a way out. When the Lord saw the wickedness of man on earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Man wants what he wants when he wants it, regardless of the cost, regardless of it's legal, regardless of it's right. regardless if it hurts other people, including himself. That's how bad it was in the days of Noah. And that's how bad it will be in the second coming. The rapture is not the second coming, because Jesus only comes in the air to resurrect, first of all, the dead in Christ, and then those that are living. The second coming is when his feet touch at the close of the 7 years of tribulation on the Mount of Olives. That's the second coming. The Lord was sorry that he made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. Did you ever do something you wish you'd never done? I think we all do. Sometimes we can't get through a day without making some stupid decision, and we don't particularly like the outcome. Opening our mouth and saying something, and oh my word, why did I say that way to that person? But this was really, really sorry on God's part that he even made man. That's how bad things got. The Lord was sorry that he made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. The Lord said, I will blot out man, whom I have created from the face of the land, from man to animals to creeping things to birds of the sky, for I am sorry that I've made them. God was sorry for all his creation. Things had gotten that bad. We don't have, and if we did have, it wouldn't mean that much to us in this day and age. These are the records of the generation of Noah. So for a moment, we're going to find out who Noah is, and then we're going to go back to the Dead Sea Scrolls. Noah was a righteous man, blameless. In his time, Noah walked with God. Noah became the father of 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in the sight of God, and the earth was filled with violence. I could speak the rest of the evening on violence. God looked on the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all the flesh had corrupted their way upon the earth. Now let me set this Bible down. And continue in the Dead Sea Scrolls, chapter 6, verse 13. And God said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. Because of who? The giants, the Nephiliim, the wicked wrongdoers. Make for yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make rooms in the ark and coat it inside and out with pitch. That's like tar, right? And this is how you shall make it. The length of the ark is 300 cubits. A cubit is from the elbow to the end of your longest finger. Well, I have a friend who is 5 feet tall. And her mother, I believe, is 5'8". There's going to be a difference between them, in the distance between their elbow and the longest finger. So for general purposes, now a cubit is 18 inches. That's half a yard. So 2 cubits make a yard. Keep that in mind. This is how you're going to make it. The length of the ark is 300 cubits. So that'd be 150 yards long. 150 yards long. It just works out that way. It isn't an easy figure for me to talk about kilometers or meters. But because it's 18 inches and 36 inches is a yard, it works out for we Americans who use that system instead of the metric system to understand. This is how you'll make it. It's going to be 300 cubits or 150 feet, 150 yards long. The breadth will be 50, so that'll be 25 yards. And its height will be 30 cubits, so that's 15 yards tall. And you'll make a window for the ark. I traveled when I was a teenager, 15, 16, 17 years old in the summer. I went to Bible school when I was 16. But the summer before that, and whenever this evangelist was near my home, they would send me a bus ticket to come on weekends and do the music for their revivals. And people used to ask me, can you sing this? Can you play this on the flute? Can you sing this? And there was a song about the window that God made in the ark. I probably should have looked it up. There's a way I can do it on the computer. Any song that's been written, I haven't looked for one yet. I haven't found. You'll make a window for the ark and finish it within a cubit of the top. So it's right at the top. And the door of the ark you shall set in the side, and you shall make it within a cubit, within 18 inches, with a lower, second, and third decks. And I myself am about to bring the flood of water upon the earth to destroy all flesh in which there is breath of life from under the heaven. Anything that is on earth, everything. Let me back up. And I myself am about to bring the flood of water upon the earth to destroy all flesh in which is the breath of life from under heaven. Everything that is on the earth shall die. Not in the water, because that question comes up. Birds are going to be on the ark, so there won't be any flying around on top or sitting up on top of it. Everything that is on the earth shall die. God said he's going to start again, and he does. I will establish my covenant with you, an agreement, a legal agreement, a legal contract with you. And you shall go into the ark, you and your sons and your wife, and your sons' wives with you. and of every living thing of all flesh. Name the animal, name the bird, everything. You will take 2 of every kind into the ark to keep them alive. It takes a male and a female bird to lay, for the female to lay an egg. No, I should say that's not true. Females can lay eggs that are infertile. And they could do it even if there's not a male around. But you don't get a little baby out of that egg. And remember, I know I'm preaching with parrots. I've got, somebody asked me my last broadcast how many, I was visiting another show, how many parrots I had. I have 14 and 3 eggs, or 4. I think there's 4 eggs now. I'm calling them my concilio bunch, because between the time the person feeding them for me left and the time I got home, there was an egg. That's the first of the 4 that are there. Okay, I will establish my covenant, my legal document, my legal contract with you. And you shall go into the ark, you and your sons and your wife, your sons' wives with you. And of every living thing of all flesh, you bring 2 of every kind into the ark to keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female. Of the births after their kind, and of the cattle after their kind. Takes 2 birds to make a bird. Once in a while, you can take a similar species and you get a hybrid. But hybrids, to my knowledge, that's just been something discovered since I went to school. I don't think so. Cannot reproduce. They exist because 2 that were of a different species, or similar but not the same, got together. But they cannot, they don't have the ability to produce themselves. Of the birds after their kind, of the cattle after their kind, of every creeping thing on the ground after their kind, of every sort, shall come to you to keep them alive. I was extremely young when I went to Bible school. I was still a kid. And I became friends with a woman who was divorced. Not her doing, his. And she went to Bible school. For a while, there was an organization of 400 theologians. 399 of them were men. And she was the 400th. Very brilliant. And she kind of took me under her wing. She had written, they used to be flannel graph stories. Something you could put up while you were explaining things to children. From there it went to film strips, and then it went to films, and now it's videos. But years ago, everybody had them. I had them. From flannel, it went to another type of material that was more durable, but we had several skies, several mountains, several foregrounds, several kinds of trees. We could build any kind of scene we needed to. And she had written a book about the tabernacle, But I remember when she was teaching this, and I thought, that's unusual. I hadn't realized, of course I was a kid, what did I know? Talking about two of every kind, of every sort, shall come to you to keep them alive. I've heard preachers say, because it, I guess, seems to be logical. I've just heard teachers and preachers mention that Noah went out and brought them all in. He didn't. When it was time for them to go in, they came in. And because I was looking for something, information I needed for Sunday night's message, and that's something to look forward to. And I found something that is incredible. And for years I've been teaching one thing. And I checked every Bible I owned at that time, and there was only one solution. But I'm finding some versions have another, and it's the difference between of and for. Those two words make a big difference in somebody's life, and we'll talk about that Sunday night. Here, the animals come to the ark. And as for you, you must take some of every kind of food that is to be eaten, and gather it to yourself, and it shall be for food for you and for them. I'm looking now. This is the end of the 7th chapter. Or the 6th chapter. There is no 7th chapter in this book. So let me put it up. Let me get the other one. And that's probably how far we'll get tonight. Let me get something moist and liquid. Okay. Then, now we get to the flood. The Lord said to Noah, enter into the ark, you and all your household. We know now, we've heard it mentioned several times what people were talking about. For you alone I have seen to be righteous before me in this time. God found one man. You shall take with you of every clean animal by sevens, a male and his female, and of the animals that are not clean, 2, a male and a female. Why 7 of one kind and 2 of another? There were some animals that were used for sacrifice. If he had 2, a male and a female sheep, it's going to take a little bit before he has a lamb. So of the animals which could be used for sacrifice, they were to take by sevens. And the others, which they were not to eat or not to use for sacrifice, only for reproductive purposes. They just needed two, the male and the female. You shall take with you of every clean animal by sevens, a male and a female, and of the animals that are not clean, two, a male and a female. Also of the birds of the sky by sevens, male and female. Remember when Jesus was born? We'll be doing that Sunday night. When he was 8 days old, he was taken to the temple along with 2 turtle doves. So some of the offerings had to do with your ability to provide an offering. So for those who were poor, a turtle dove, a type of bird, was a suitable offering. To keep the offspring alive on the face of the earth. For after 7 more days, I will send rain on the earth. They're going to be in there locked up for 7 days before anything happens. I would be going stark raving mad. And then the rain will start for 40 days and 40 nights. And I will blot out from the face of the land every living thing that I've made. Don't ask about the fish. Fish don't live on land. Noah did according to all that the Lord commanded him. Now Noah was 600 years old. Just a few verses previously, I said he was 500. It was during that time that God told him to build the ark. So it took at least a little bit less than 100 years. It could be even half of that to build the ark. Noah was 600 years old when the flood water came upon the earth. Then Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him entered the ark because of the water of the flood. It wasn't raining at the time they went in. They were in there for a week before it started to rain. A lot of times, if we don't understand what the Lord tells us to do, we don't want to do it. We think God only has the right to tell us to do what we understand, what we want, what we think is for our own good. We want to test God. We don't always like it when God tests us. Noah did according to all the Lord commanded him. Then Noah and his sons and his wives, it's of clean animals and animals that are not clean, and birds and everything that creeps on the ground, there went into the ark to Noah. They came to the ark. They walked in. You know how to catch a puppy that doesn't want to be caught? You know how to catch a bird that hasn't been tamed? Not easy and not fun. They went into the ark. They showed up, walked up the ramp, went in the door to Noah by twos, male and female, as God had commanded Noah. It came about after 7 days that the water of the flood came upon the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, on the same day that all the fountains of the great deep burst open and the floodgates of the sky were open. It had never rained before. How about that? How did the plants survive? Dew came up and watered them. It hadn't rained before. The rain fell upon the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. The very same day Noah and Shem and Ham and Japheth, the sons of Noah, and Noah's wife and the 3 wives of his sons with them entered the ark. They and every beast after its kind, and all the cattle after their kind, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth after its kind, and every bird after its kind, all sorts of birds. So they went into the ark to Noah by twos of all the flesh in which there was the breath of life. Those that entered, male and female of all flesh, entered as God commanded him, and the Lord closed it behind them. When the last bird walked in, and the last animal walked in, the Lord closed the door. Noah did not keep anybody out of the ark. They could have walked in right along with the animals. What do you think about a bunch of people, or a few people, seeing all those animals walk into that ark? Wouldn't you think that with Noah's preaching and seeing those animals? I don't see my cell phone here. I have a very interesting, oh, I wish I would have thought of it before. I have a ladder going up to the cockatiel's cage. I have 3 cockatiels. And they're just walking up that ladder. But I guess the cell phone's in the other room and I won't run in and get it. I'll try to remember to show you next Wednesday. They just walked in. I sent it to a friend of mine that I used to train dogs with. That picture, I sent it to her as a text. And the answer I got back was, wow, because she had seen things I had taught dogs to do. But she had never seen what I've taught some birds to do. And all I got to do is teach one bird, and that bird will teach all the others. But anyway, I would think if I saw animals walking in, I think I'd say, yeah, it's worth a chance. I think I'd run in. But it wasn't Noah that closed the door. It was God's. And it wasn't the people that God closed the door on. They could have been believers. They could have gone on. Perhaps in God's plan, since he wanted to change what the population was, he knew they wouldn't. but it was their own sin, their own decision that kept them off. It may have been God's plan, but along with that, we're each responsible for what we do. Then the flood came upon the earth for 40 days, and the water increased and lifted up the ark so that it rose above the earth. The water prevailed and increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark floated on the surface of the water. The water prevailed more and more upon the earth, so that all the high mountains everywhere under the heavens were covered. Yesterday, I had an appointment at the bottom of the hill, and I have one tomorrow. I live at 6,000 feet altitude, and the town where my appointments are is at 1,000 feet altitude. Keep going and you're in the desert, and you're at 0 feet altitude. But Highland and San Bernardino, some of those towns are at 1,000 feet altitude. Every time we go 1,000 feet, we get a sign. You're now at 5,000 feet altitude. You're now at 4,000 feet altitude. I count those signs, and every 4.5 miles that I go, or 4 miles, they have a passing zone in case you get somebody that's going too slow and they just don't pull over and let people pass. The tops of the mountains, our lake up here, is 1 mile high, between 5,000 and 6,000 feet. The ark floated on the surface of the water. The water prevailed more and more upon the earth, so that the high mountains everywhere under the heavens were covered, so that there was no possible place that didn't get covered with water. The water prevailed 15 cubits higher, and the mountains were covered. 15 cubits. That would be 7.5 yards above the highest mountain. All flesh that moved on the earth perished, birds and cattle and beasts and every swarming thing that swarms upon the earth, and all mankind. And all that were on dry land, all in whose nostrils is the breath of the Spirit of life, died. And he blotted out every living thing that was upon the face of the land, from man to animals to creeping things, and to birds on the sky. And they were blotted out from the earth. And only Noah was left, together with those that were with him, into the ark. The water prevailed on the earth for 150 days. 1/2 of 300. We've got 360 biblical days in a year. Now we've got to chapter 8. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to do something that I haven't done before. Before I started playing tonight, or before I set up for the program tonight, I was playing my keyboard. I'm going to see if I can get it here where, I'm not sure where I had it. I should have changed it. I should have changed the cameras before I did that. Now let me see if I can lean over here without knocking something over. Let me get the cameras. Okay. Whoops, that one didn't work out too well, but that's okay. Well, this one isn't okay, is it? It fell over. How about Amazing Grace? Okay, see you next time. Blessings on you.